Call the City of Westfield, Indiana Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order for February 28th, 2024. Will staff please note the presence of quorum?
Nick Barberchik.
Here.
Randy Graham.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we get going on the agenda items, for the record, we're adding an additional action item, number 13, boundary consulting, which will be presented in that order. So first up on the agenda itself is the consideration of the minutes from January 24th, 2024. Having had opportunity to review those minutes, are there any additions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve action item number 1. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to contracts and agreements. Action item number 2, City of Westfield and Norcon Inc., Simon Moon Park Phase 1 Goods and Services Contract.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the record, Chris McConnell, Director of Parks and Recreation. This is a contract, as stated, between the City of Westfield and the general contractor Norcon for the construction of the Phase 1 park expansion of Simon Moon, which will involve the shrinking and connection of the two old wastewater detention lagoons, adding of some parkland, trails, a bridge, a new parking lot, shrinking and the microphone.
Yeah, the lights are flashing.
All right. The re-engineering of the sledding hill and a new, larger parking lot along 171st Street, and then also a turnaround and access drive back towards the pond. The contract is for in total $375. And I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
And I'll just add that this was a very favorable bid for us. It came in well under the engineer's estimate. $6.8 million low bid on I think an 8.2 million
the original the original engineer's estimate was just over $8.2 million. This came in at low bid, and most of the bids were competitive to this one, just a little bit higher.
Yeah, we had what, 6 bidders?
Yeah, we had 6 bidders in total. Obviously, this one coming in most favorable.
Yep. So that's a big win for the city. It's a hat tip to Chris and his team, as well as our consultant doing the design work to provide clear plans that allowed contractors to make competitive bids on the project.
What was the biggest reason you found for the decrease, the gap between the engineer's estimate and the bids?
I don't have a good answer to that. It came out at a very good time, and it was a very competitive project that I think a lot of people wanted to bid at. So contractors were really sharpening their pencils when they were putting the bids together.
Yeah, and it is challenging to estimate, to provide a cost estimate on unique projects such as this. So you do your best to assume unit costs on things like concrete piers for docks and boardwalks and that type of thing. But if a contractor has a specialized way that they're really competent at doing it and can do it efficiently, your assumptions could be wrong, and that could be a difference in that cost estimate. So
It's good to see this project move forward. I remember when we did the approval on cleaning the sludge out of the pits, and that turned into more than what we thought, and now now the sludge pits are gonna be a fishing pond. It's good progress, and I'm glad to see it, having stepped back a couple years ago when the other was going on, and seeing this presentation here now. Are there any further questions or comments?
None from me.
Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve action item number 2 as written.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to approve action item number 2 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is action item number 3, Christopher B. Burke Engineering LLC and City of Westfield, Southridge Subdivision Drainage Improvements, Professional Services Design Proposal.
Thank you, Wes Rude, Stormwater Coordinator, City of Westfield Public Works. The proposal you have in front of you is for some preliminary design work for the South Ridge subdivision, specifically the South Ridge Court. In 2022, we updated our stormwater master plan. We identified a few locations across the city that were in need of some infrastructure improvements. South Ridge being the main priority one. Essentially, that cul-de-sac has a tendency to flood annually, even leaving some residents stuck in their driveways where they can't get out. So we feel like this is an important project, and we have asked Christopher Burke to do some preliminary design work for us so that we can look at improving that infrastructure at that location. The total for that contract was $26,300, which is probably lower than we would normally see, but we wanted to trim the fat a little bit on this contract because there's some things we could do internally on this project specifically.
So is this situation something that is a newer situation that happened because of effect of something else, or has this just been an ongoing problem at this location over the years?
This has been an ongoing problem for several years. So I wouldn't say that the additional road improvements or development that we see in the area is causing any sort of specific issue. I think given the age of the neighborhood and the designs and standards that were in place then, it just wasn't really built to what we would consider today's standards. So.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Questions or comments?
No more from me.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve action item number 3 as stated on the record.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded to approve action item number 3. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 4, 161st and Oak Roundabout Macy Parcel Acquisition Statement.
Yeah, so this is one of the items to wrap up our 161st and Oak Roundabout project. The Macy parcel is on the southeast corner of the intersection. You can see that we had to acquire a small sliver of right-of-way as part of the project to make room for some roadside ditching as part of the roundabout project. So we had to acquire 0.1 acres from the Macy's. We, through our eminent domain process and negotiations with the Macy's, in that process, we had reached a settlement agreement of $30,500 for the acquisition. That compares to the court-appointed appraisal amount of $26,800 that we have already paid to the courts. And so this just closes out the acquisition without any kind of jury trial or anything like that. Both sides are happy with the amount. We can move forward and be on our way with a finished roundabout. So we've already negotiated the amount. Both parties are happy, but we do want to get your final approval for the payment. So again, it's just the difference between the $30,500 settlement agreement and the $26,800 that we've already paid that we're going to be paying additionally to the courts to close out this matter. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
None from me.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second that. Have a motion made and approved for action item number 4 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 5, City of Westfield and E&B Paving LLC Grand Park Lot J Project Goods and Services Contract.
Yep, for the record, Michael Pierce, city engineer. So this is a project we as in Public Works has been working with Grand Park for quite some time on. They've wanted to get this lot paved for quite some time. It's currently a stone lot. So they're looking basically to have a contractor come in, regrade the stone, lay some new stone in some areas, pave the lot, restripe it to get some more spots in there, and then also put some wooden bollards along the trail on kind of the north side where the trail comes down and swings in near the parking lot. So we helped them out with designing that project, getting the contract out to bid, getting bids on that. We had 4 bids on the contract. E&B was low bidder at $414,214. Grand Park will be obviously paying for the work, but we're handling contract administration for them and getting things rolling on the project and providing inspection. So this is just the goods and services contract to get them going on the project.
Yeah, and I'll just add that Public Works did the design work for this to save money for the city, and that Grand Park has budgeted for this construction project already, so it's in their approved budget.
So Grand Park is funding it. Okay.
Grand Park's paying the contractor for the work, but because Public Works helped with the design and we are pretty well versed in public bids, we helped them through that process, and this is our standard goods and services contract.
That makes more sense because my question was going to be, how does it relate to taking over with the development company? But that makes more sense.
Yeah, it was already budgeted, so this was already forethought in those negotiations.
All right, any further discussion? No? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I will second that. There's been a motion made and seconded to approve action item number 5 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 6, signing authority 2024 resurfacing project.
Sure. Michael Pierce again, city engineer. This is just a signing authority for our 2024 resurfacing program. That project is currently out to bid with bids opening on Friday. This signing authority, which you may not have seen before, signing authority basically just gives John the right to sign the contract once we open the bids, as long as they're under the not to exceed amount of 2.6 in this contract. This 2.6 million is based upon $1 million of community crossings money that we were awarded last year, as well as 1.6 million in local funding. So we'll open the bids Friday, determine what alternate. It's structured based on several alternates we bid. So depending on how favorable our bid prices come in, we might be able to do more streets or less streets depending on how the streets come in. But we'll determine that, make the determination, and John will be able to sign the contract soon after so we can get this on the contractor's schedule and get it ready for construction as soon as the plants are open. So just ask for approval on the signing authority here.
Any discussion?
And you won't know the amount until you open the bids, and we can't.
Correct.
Give a
Yeah,
frame on
we
that.
won't know the amount. Based on the way the alternatives are structured, we're very, very confident that the base bid would be within this. It's just a matter of how much we can add on top of that to stay within the budget.
And signing, this not to exceed signing authority is a pretty standard thing, so.
Yep,
Is that it?
that's all I have.
All right, there's no further discussion. I will make a motion to approve action item number 6, signing authority 2024 resurfacing project not to exceed $2,600,000.
I second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve action item number 6 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 7, signing authority CDBG Blackburn Road Sidewalk Project.
Yeah, so this is another signing authority similar to the one right before that. This is for a sidewalk project on Blackburn Road. Last last year, I believe it was, we approved a contract with Noblesville Housing Authority, which distributes the community block grant money to us. And so we were awarded about $180,000 to do the sidewalk along the north side of Blackburn Road. We opened bids for that on 2/16. We had 5 bidders. Yardberry Construction was a low bidder at $228,000. So that was a little bit above our engineer's estimate on that project. So the reason we don't have a goods and services contract and really are only asking for signing authority right now is we're working with Noblesville Housing Authority to actually get some additional funding through CDBG from this year's allotment of money, put it toward this project. And so we're just working through the gymnastics of making sure we can do all that before we actually sign the contract. But the intention would be to use those funds to cover the difference between our original contract and our bid.
Any discussion, questions?
Not from me.
Having none, I'll entertain a motion on this.
Move to approve.
I will second that. We have a motion made and seconded to approve action item number 7 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 8, City of Westfield HWC Water and Land Resources 2024 Post-Construction BMP Maintenance Contract.
Wes Rude, Stormwater Coordinator, City of Westfield Public Works. The contract you have in front of you is in regards to our permitting with the state. We are required per MCM, Minimal Control Measure 5, to maintain all of our post-construction BMPs or best management practices. We have annually done that. This contract is to see that the 19 sites that we have that are publicly owned across the city are being maintained to stay in compliance. This contract is to have HWC provide those services for us to continue that maintenance. Lump sum on that was $73,475, which is higher than it was last year, but we've also added an additional 4 locations as some of our recent capital improvement projects.
And this, with the addition of the 4, this appears to be somewhat in line with last year minus those properties.
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing with this is by doing maintenance, we keep our costs lower. If we fail to do maintenance like we had done maybe previously, the cost is higher. So we can add new sites as we go on as long as we're still maintaining the ones in the past. So between wet and dry basins. So yeah, I would see that this is absolutely in line with what I would expect to see. And really it does depend on the amount of, infrastructure we maintain.
Yeah, it's a little bit like our asset management for our roadways, right? If you're staying up on your crack ceiling and you're resurfacing, you don't let roads get to the point where you have to fully reconstruct where it gets really expensive. So this annual maintenance actually long-term keeps our costs down. And we also, this is within the amount that we budget annually for this work.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
None here.
Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve action item number 8 as stated on the record.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded to approve action item number 8 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to action item number 9, City of Westfield CC&T Construction ADA Curb Ramp Construction Replacement Goods and Services Contract.
Yep. Me again, Michael Pierce, city engineer. This is a contract for ADA sidewalk ramp replacement. There's several areas within Westfield where we've had complaints from residents, and actually, at least in one case, a resident had a trip and fall incident on the sidewalk. So we took a pretty comprehensive look at that subdivision that happened in, as well as there's several other locations where we've had resident complaints of inaccessible curb ramps within Westfield. So this contract is to go in and replace those curb ramps, make them fully ADA compliant, and provide better accessibility throughout our pedestrian network. So most of the ramps on this contract are in the Cary Commons neighborhood, just east of the City Services building. However, there are 3 locations in Countryside, 1 on Westleah Drive, and 1 in Village Farms. So the Village Farms is actually just curb replacement, but it made sense to lump in this contract. So we solicited quotes from 9 contractors on this. We received 3 bids. Lowest was CC&T at $97,448. They're a good contractor. They actually did a very similar project to this just a couple years ago in Beacon Point, and they did a good job for us. So just ask that you approve this contract.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago when we did some of this work, and I know there was some like grinding of the uneven surfaces and everything on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And it seemed to turn out pretty well. So we're still just hitting cleanup on this in other areas, and just for the record, any new construction is totally ADA compliant from new construction, correct?
Correct, yeah. Any new construction, we review that to make sure that's ADA compliant. We have inspectors in the field to do that. I think what you're talking about with the cutting of the sidewalk to make that compliant, that's a little bit of a different program. We do still provide that service, and actually we'll be doing that again in June in another subdivision. This is actually physically taking out all the panels, replacing them with new panels, lowering the slopes to make them compliant, putting the warning panels in, replacing curb, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
No questions here?
Any questions? All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to approve action item number 9 as stated on the record.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to approve action item number 9 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to permit approval, action item number 10, encroachment permit application, Duke Energy, 1099 East 199th.
Yes, Adam Essex, Utility Coordinator, City of Westfield. So I know Randy has some familiarity with these Duke Energy permits. Nick, it's your first time on the board, and I know I talked to Danielle this morning about it, and I think maybe John's had some communication with Mayor Willis. But so for all right-of-way work, Westfield Public Works, we have like the sole approval authority for any utilities or people performing work on our right-of-ways. The lone exception of that rule is when Duke Energy primarily is proposing any aerial work like that involves utility pole replacement or the addition of new poles in our right-of-way. In observance of our Westfield's underground Berry resolution was adopted in 2017, we do ask that those, where we require those to be approved by the Board of Public Works and Safety. This is all in an effort to eliminate as many poles in our right-of-way as we can. So it's been a bit of a grind since 2017 with Duke, but we've made some pretty good headway with them. We're a thorn in their side. And we've actually achieved some underground facilities that have been installed that otherwise probably would not have. So just a brief of what these permits are all about. So got a couple of them here. First one, 199th Street. It's 1019 East 199th. Be just across from Chatham Hills. Duke is proposing the addition of a new electric pole there. They have proposed it just in line with the others, which is only about 3 feet off the edge of pavement. That is to provide service to a resident on the south side of the road who is installing an indoor tennis facility on their property. So we always ask Duke to provide some kind of a cost comparison in terms of designing this underground versus going aerial. Best they could tell us is that their customer has $12,000 invested in this. That's what the bill from Duke is going to be. Duke did look at trying to feed this tennis facility without the addition of a new pole, with the closest pole without a transformer is 500 feet away. So that's about $8,000 in extra cost to Duke that would be passed on to the resident. So they have otherwise then proposed the addition of a new pole in the right-of-way. I did ask them to do what they could to offset that further off the pavement than just 3 feet. So they said they could do that. It could result in a minimal increase though to the customer, but I don't know if we have a Google Earth also has an image if that helps.
I think the long and short of it is it'll be an additional pole, but it won't be any closer than any of the other poles that are on that roadway. It's to provide service to a resident who's requested it.
It's fairly low volume.
Yeah, and it's a low volume roadway. So I guess our recommendation would be to go ahead and approve it, despite the fact that it is an additional pole. They're going to try and offset it as far as they can.
Burying those lines is not going to be made a difference by one more additional pole in the future.
Right.
No, and it's going to result in additional cost to the resident, which we don't really want to see either.
Exactly.
My only concern for the record is that any time that they add poles, that they go to the maximum setback so that when they do need moved, that we're not responsible for more, and it's only going to be, if it has to be only 3 feet off the road, and that's what we're here to consider. But I don't like more poles, and I sure as heck do not like them at the minimum setback, because we will pay to have them move later on. And so my question is that a possibility from an engineering standpoint for that to be moved to the maximum extent of the right of way and still work?
It is. There's actually I think a 65-foot half from the center line of the road. Now you might get some objection from Chatham Bills on that.
Yeah.
So there's a fair amount of right-of-way to the north right there. They can design it, however.
They can design it, yeah. Two things there. If they move it to the back of the right-of-way line, there's either going to be additional poles required to help support that, or guy wires required in some capacity.
Additional down guys, they said. Probably.
Yeah, additional down guys to not, when overhead electric lines are all in a row, they don't have any lateral forces from the poles. When you start offsetting it out of line, you got to start having down guys to support that pole. That would be additional costs that would then get passed on to the resident as well. So the other thing I wanted to point out, Randy, you're right. We do have to pay for relocation work when Duke has an easement over their overhead electric poles. I don't know for a fact that they have an easement on this run. If the poles are just in the right of way and not in a dedicated electric utility easement, then they have to relocate at their cost, not our cost. So there's a big difference there. Yeah.
So you're saying this is the lesser of the evil and it's acceptable? I mean, I don't like it. And I will ask this on every single one of these that we ever have that are not underground. You may remember, Mr. Nail. But
you have every right to decline if you want to, but yeah, where I'm sitting, I think it is the lesser of two evils.
No, I will respect your decision.
What would be that process for Duke to pay for it in the event that they were following our ordinance?
So when we have a road project and Duke has overhead electric facilities in the right-of-way but not in a dedicated easement, by state law, they have to relocate their utilities at their cost. The reason behind that is that they have the privilege of using our right-of-way, but the implication or the trade-off of using our right-of-way is when we have a project that utilizes our own right-of-way, they have to move first at their cost. If they, in many cases for big transmission lines or some of their larger facilities, they'll go ahead and purchase easements to make sure that in the future they don't have to relocate at their costs. And when they have a dedicated easement and we do a road project, now we have to pay them to relocate. And so that's something we consider very closely before we even design a roadway project for that reason, because these poles can be extremely costly to relocate. And really, we want to be cognizant either way. Even if they're relocating at their cost, that's a cost that could get passed on to a ratepayer. So we want to be good team players in this aspect as well. Does that answer your question, Nick?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Not here.
I'll entertain a motion on action item number 10.
Move to approve.
I will second that. Motion's been made and seconded to approve action item number 10 as stated on the record. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then on to action item number 11, encroachment permit application Duke Energy, 2904 East 151st Street.
Yes, so another permit by Duke involving new poles. And in this case, Duke is asking for forgiveness instead of permission. We're dealing with a new engineer here who was not familiar. And not only did they not present to the board, they didn't even apply for a permit. So they've changed out a couple new poles. In this case, they did take full advantage of the right-of-way available though, and these are extremely far off the road as they can be, so. But yeah, they replaced actually 3 poles along the frontage of 151st Street, the Bridlewood neighborhood frontage.
Duke's been doing this for a while.
They have.
They ought to have the process down.
Yeah, they have, so. It's almost like a re-education. Every time they have a shuffling of positions with engineers, you get an engineer, and it's the story of we didn't understand this was a requirement, but their higher-ups know well our requirements.
And I do not see a representative from Duke here today. No.
No, they typically choose not to present, so.
And you said they were installed to the maximum setback, or
They
were
are
set
installed to the
way
maximum
back?
they're at the maximum available right-of-way.
Okay.
So they're well off the road. In fact, we do have a pedestrian path that will continue on through here once.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have followed the correct process and gotten an encroachment permit, we would have had no problem
Yeah.
approving it. They were doing what they were supposed to do and with respect to the placement of the poles.
Yeah.
They just had a new engineer that wasn't aware of the process. So this is a sort of an encroachment permit after the fact, because the
I
facilities
assure you,
are
I'm doing
installed.
my best to keep them honest, and every time I have got basically a template, boilerplate email that goes out every time if this crops up. We have a new engineer who doesn't understand the rules in Westfield, but.
I'm just hesitant to approve anything like this that where we're going back and asking forgiveness for something we shouldn't have done. I've seen too many of these Duke projects come through. They know the process. If the engineer didn't know what he was doing, then, everybody is supervisor.
There is a
So,
mechanism within the ordinance. We can assess a fine for this work, that can certainly be applied.
I mean, on the other one, Duke Energy does anything, either the city pays, the taxpayers pay, or the resident pays. I don't understand why Duke Energy doesn't pay when they do something like this. Back to the city of Westfield and the residents therein who bear the burden of the other cost, whether you're the resident or whether you're other citizens of Westfield who bear the cost of whatever the city spends. I just think that if it's going to be one way for us, it should be the same way for Duke, and that's my opinion. And I have an issue with approving action item number 11. Further discussion?
What would be would it be pertinent to table this?
I mean, you guys can choose not to approve the encroachment permit. And to Adam's point, there is room in the encroachment ordinance that we have for a fine of this nature when they're not following the process. So, yeah, feel free. You can elect not to approve the encroachment permit, and then we'll get together internally and talk through with Duke about potentially a fine process. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Right. I would make a motion to not approve action item number 11 and let staff have further discussion with Duke to have financial responsibility for what they've done.
Second that.
Have a motion made and seconded to deny action item number 11 pending further investigation by staff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion will not pass. Next up, under the appeal section is action item number 12, Landry Commons illicit discharge fine appeal. It's brought to my attention by staff that there's been some further discussion and a bit of confusion on this item with the representatives of Landry Commons. So we're going to table this until the March meeting.
That's correct, yeah. Just a miscommunication on timing of the meeting. We want to give them an opportunity to come here and talk through the issue. And it's not going to hold them up in any way on the development side of things. It's just a matter of the amount of the fine.
And I can just do that. We don't need a vote on that. I can just table it.
Caitlin?
Or do you want to vote? I can make a motion.
You can make a motion if you want to. I don't really think it's necessary, but for the record, it could be helpful.
Okay, and we'll do that moving forward. I will make a motion to table action item number 12 until the March meeting so the staff can have further discussion with Landry Commons.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table action item number 12 until the March meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Before we get to the consent agenda, I do have an added, do I need a petition for that, a motion for that too? I never have, but.
I think as the chair, you can amend the agenda here during the
Okay,
meeting.
I wanted to
Yep.
make sure that was still the case. Thank you. All right, action item number 13 has been added to the agenda today. It is boundary construction in City of Westfield.
Good evening, members. Danielle Carey-Tolan, Chief of Staff, City of Westfield. Before you, you have a contract with Bondry Consulting. He is our municipal finance advisor that we have contracted. We just had some legal back and forth, just making sure the contract was pertinent to what both legal entities were happy with before it came to you. So sorry for the delay of getting it in your hands. And the reason why it's in your hands and not us just signing off on the service contract is it is above that 50,000 mark. So, but he has a litany of services, over 26 services that he'll be providing on top of just advising us on anything from bonds to with the clerk treasurer's office of helping with assisting with what else? I don't have the contract in front of me. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, bonds and, yeah, it's just all advisory. There's 26 items in there.
I'm sorry?
There's 26 items in there that he's identified.
Right. So is this something that we will make a motion for approval on, or is this city council thing? I didn't understand.
It's you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm good with it.
I just need one more minute, please. I think I'm seeing the meat of it. Any further discussion?
None here?
All right, if there's no further discussion, I will make a motion to approve action item number 13 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to approve action item number 13, boundary construction as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving forward, consent agenda wouldn't be there if it wasn't good to go. So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, occasionally, I don't know if you wanted to make any presentation on the items that were on there or not. Scott? I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments about the new officers or anything, or if you just want to wait till report time, but it was on the consent agenda.
I can give you a brief overview if you'd like.
Okay, if you would.
Scott Jordan, Assistant Chief of Police, City of Westfield. Randy, it's good to see you. Nick, it was nice to meet you. So 2 candidates to join the force that we're seeking consent and approval, which you've already done. The first candidate is Alexis Couchman. She's from the area, attended Zionsville High School, graduated with honors, was involved in a lot of the programs over in Boone County with youth policing programs at the Boone County Sheriff's Office, Zionsville Police Department. She then went to Indiana State, where she graduated in 2.5 years with honors in cyber crimes while working full-time. The second candidate, Ryan Barth, comes to us as a lateral candidate. He's been a police officer for 3.5 years in the village of Orland Park, Illinois. Orland Park is a similar type community to Westfield in that it's a suburb, roughly 60,000 residents, 101 officers. With Ryan, we hope to apply for a lateral candidate waiver through the academy, meaning he would not have to actually attend the academy. He would have to test out of criminal law and firearms. That's a process that we would put in place. Both Alexis and Ryan we'd like to bring on board on March 25th. Alexis would have to go to the academy starting at the end of April. Again, that's a little bit of information about him. Happy to answer any questions that you would have.
Yeah, it was on the consent, we approved it, but then I backed up and remembered enjoying hearing about the new officers that were on the way here. So I'll try not to miss that on the front end moving forward, but it's always good to hear that information of exactly where you guys are at. I've seen the ads out, the we're hiring things are out, and I've seen that on social media. So it's a good thing.
Yes, and if both of those are hired, that'll bring us to 73. We're approved for 75. As you mentioned, we just posted a new hiring process, so we have 2 openings, but I would consider us fully staffed.
Good. You want to go ahead and do your report since you're up?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Get there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to spring it on you.
That's all right.
Fire always goes first.
I would just say with the January report, no real outliers, no increases or significant decreases in our UCR crimes. Our UCR crimes are those most serious crimes that we track and report to the federal government. Out of all of the serious crimes of UCR, our highest number of crimes are in thefts and batteries, but nothing significant to report in the January report. I know the actual report is kind of under review. We hope to distill it down and really bring more stories of where we've made an impact in the community rather than just throwing data out. But in looking at January 24 versus 23, nothing significant to report on that. I was going to give just a brief update on 2 new officers that we hired toward the end of last year, if you'd want that information as part of my report.
Please.
So we hired Casey Typho from the Westerville, Ohio Police Department in the end of 23. She was a lateral candidate. It's a suburb of Columbus, Ohio. She's finishing up her 14 weeks of field training where she rides with another officer. She's going to be released to night squad soon. Great addition to the department and doing well. The second is Nick Miller. He's actually a transfer from the fire department. He's at the academy currently. He started January 2nd. He's been there about 11 weeks, has 7 weeks to go. He's doing really well down there. Once he graduates next month, he'll come back and be with an officer for 14 weeks to continue his training. But happy to answer any questions. Just wanted to give you an update of those 2 new hires that we hired last year as well.
Thank you. I like to stay on top of the new hires and what's going on in the departments. So,
sure.
Any questions, comments?
No, he covered it.
Good job, as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Rob Gaylor, Westfield Fire. Monthly report from January. Again, not a whole lot. Don't want to parrot what Assistant Chief Jordan mentioned with the police department, but we're very similar. A couple exceptions. January, we averaged 14.7 responses per day, an average turnout time of 1 minute and 17 seconds, for a total of 995 apparatus responses. So every once in a while I get a question, what does that mean? So in short, in the month of January, one of our fire apparatus responded emergent 995 times. So our folks are out and about and in the community quite frequently. As we compare to 23, we're seeing about almost a 7.8% increase from 22 to 23 on the runs. And just like any year, it comes in waves. February may be dead even, or a little percentage here, a little percentage there. Too early to really kind of predict where we're going to end up towards the end of 24. But I would expect a very similar increase in call volume, just kind of it's where we've been trending for the last 20 years, is a pretty steady increase of 3 to 10%. We had a crazy year in 2020 where we saw almost a 21 to 23% increase in call volume. So I don't expect that, but we are seeing a high influx of projects and properties coming on board. So January, we did have a property loss of $25,000 on some property valued at $220,000. So nothing real major there as far as we're concerned. Again, I'm not going to bore you with reading all of the data here. One thing that I want to point out at the end is our response to medical facilities. Standard, really, for us. We respond to extended care facilities, healthcare facilities a lot. We're really tracking these, but one thing that I want to bring to light is 83 of the 443 calls for service in the month of January were to healthcare facilities. So just like to get that out there and keep track of that on the public forum. We have potential for some more healthcare facilities coming into the community. So it's just going to be a greater call for service from the fire department. Overall, some of our facilities here, we're actually seeing a decrease, a pretty substantial decrease from one facility compared to the previous year. Most of them are relatively the same, but as you look at the chart, one decreased rather significantly and one increased rather significantly, and it really comes out in about a wash. Be happy to answer any questions that you folks may have.
I appreciate you highlighting that, because I know when I was here before a few years ago that was becoming a big thing. And I believe you spoke to some things that the fire department were doing, some training things and some initiatives with the healthcare facilities to maybe lessen the amount of calls, things that they could do. Has that had some success, or is that anything that's still on the table? Or?
That is still ongoing, and our folks communicate with them frequently. I'm not going to say on a monthly basis, but frequently the EMS division has meetings and visits with these facilities. The challenge that we run into is oftentimes there's a change in mid-level management at these facilities, and so the overrun of people coming and going and shortage of staff and things like that leads to similar items from years past. I don't know what the fix is for that. That's a challenge in their organization that we end up receiving the downstream effects of sometimes.
Well, the problem may not be solved, but at least you're being proactive and working with that, and that's a positive sign. So to at least keep it at bay from running out of control. Thank you for what you do.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great report.
Any questions or comments for the chief?
Nothing here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Nail, Public Works.
Yeah, weather can't seem to make up its mind. We had weather that felt like April earlier in the week. Now it feels like February again. And I was looking at the weekend weather. It's going to be beautiful come the weekend. So, we've certainly had pothole crews out every day, making sure we're addressing any potholes that have popped up over the wintertime with some of the wet weather. And we haven't totally put away our snow equipment. We fully expect there'll probably be one more snow event before we get to spring for good. So we're ready for that if it does come. It should be a fairly busy year for construction in the city of Westfield, probably a little busier than it was last year. Michael mentioned in his agenda item about the bid package bid opening on Friday for the 2024 resurface work. That's a really big lift, and kudos to Michael and his team for putting that together. We don't use any outside consultant help when we're putting together that resurface package. Again, that's a savings to our taxpayer that we're able to manage that lift ourselves and get that to a bid. So we're eager to see what the prices are going to come in at. We've got quite a bit of roads on our package this year, and we're excited to get going on it. 196th Street reconstruction work will continue. We're doing some widening and reconstruction of that roadway between East Street and Grassy Branch, inclusive of a little piece of Grassy Branch to the north of 196th Street to help support some of North Point work that's going on up there. There's more industrial traffic as a result of that development, so we're making some roadway improvements to help support that. Look for 151st and Town Roundabout to go to construction this fall. It's currently a four-way stop. It'll be a really nice improvement to have a roundabout out there on the west side. And then we're also trying to finalize 161st and Spring Mill Roundabout. We're wrapping up some right-of-way acquisition on the northwest corner, making sure utilities are starting to relocate, make sure they're still out of the way of construction, and trying to push that project forward as well. So those are the big ticket items. I will mention 102 South Union, the green building there on the corner of 32 and Union. We were able to remove the portion of building between Jan's Pizza and the portion of the building that we're actually going to relocate. What we did find after we removed that piece was that the sill plate on that side that was kind of exposed to poor drainage and groundwater has deteriorated pretty substantially to the point where we need to do some additional shoring of that building before we can actually move it. So we're working through with the structural engineer, and then our street department will actually do some of the framing and shoring internally to make sure that we've got a good load-bearing wall on that south side of the building to make sure we can pick that thing up and move it. So something that you don't see every day, but we've got an incredible street department with a wide variety of skills, and it's probably not every city that can handle that internally, but we're certainly going to do it. So excited to get that building moved and continue the project on State Road 32. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Just because I've lost the memory, where is that building going to move to?
It's going to move directly to our west as we're sitting here today. There's a lot just south of the Westfield Playhouse on the east side of Union that the city owns. It's going to move just onto that lot. So the front door it'll be oriented the same as it is now with the main door facing west and being on Union Street. And then this alley that runs behind Town Hall will border the north perimeter of the building.
Is that the city's building now, or is that still privately owned?
It is within NDOT right-of-way because of the right-of-way acquisition for 32. We are going to move it as part of the 32 project, and the city will own that building at that new location beyond once it's relocated. And we'll do renovation work, bring it up to its historical significance, and hopefully have a thriving business that operates out of that building in maybe 2025, hopefully beginning of 25.
And that one was not raised because it has historical something?
It does. It was the first general store in Westfield, and it's always been a point of commerce for the town of Westfield. It was very much a meeting place, and it's the oldest commercial building in Westfield as well. So significant from a historical perspective, and it's very cool inside. There's hand-hewn beams in the attic. It's a neat building. When we renovate it, rehab it to its historical significance, I think it's going to be a very handsome building.
It's just been a minute since I talked about it, so I'm trying to get back up to speed on
Yeah,
what's going on.
we've been working on it for a while too, so
Yeah.
I can understand that.
No, thank you for that. It's challenging getting through all of the maintenance coming out of winter as we plan for the growth and the significant investments you're making to accommodate the growth, but appreciate the work y'all are doing on it.
Yeah, I'll echo that, what he said. And, I'm looking out here to my left and behind the screen, I can see a little bit of a relocation project and how that turned out. And it may not be as exciting as the log cabin, but hopefully it's going to turn out nice and be something that we can be proud of here in the city. Anything else?
Nothing further from me.
All right, if there is no further business today, anyone, last call? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting for February 28th, 2024. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.